14 seconds. That was how long the amphitheater held its breath after she stopped speaking. Maya counted them, the way she counted everything that mattered, watching 47 species freeze in their seats like the air itself had gone solid. Somewhere behind her, a translation drone kept trying to render silence into language and failing. Nobody in that chamber had ever not known what to say. Now none of them did. It began 9 hours earlier with laughter. She had been standing at the center of the council's amphitheater, a single human lost in a forest of alien delegates twice her height, when Ambassador Cleth of the Vortani rose to explain, gently and at length, why the Terran Defense Force did not belong among the Alliance's soldiers. The room agreed with him instantly. Gas bladders hissed with amusement. A crystalline delegate chimed something that might have been a giggle. Commander Vex of the Hegemony rolled all 6 of his eyes in one smooth motion and called her a child playing dress-up. Maya let them finish. She always let them finish. "You're right that we're behind," she said when the noise settled. "No shield tech, no plasma rifles. Half our ships are held together with duct tape and stubbornness." A ripple of real laughter this time, less cruel, but nobody's asked what we do have instead. Vex leaned forward. "Go on, then." 200,000 years of not dying, Maya said, without any of your hardware. Words won't prove that. Let me show you. At her signal, 3 combat drones shimmered into existence on the open floor, one armored like a corvan, one that flickered like the ethereal delegates, one bristling with the layered weapons of a dozen warrior cultures. Sensors locked onto her before her jacket hit the floor. The armored drone fired first, or tried to. Maya was already gone, folded inside its guard before the shot cleared the barrel, and the machine went over her shoulder in a single motion that looked less like combat than like gravity changing its mind. It hit the floor hard enough to rattle the delegates' seats. "One," she said, not even breathing hard. The second drone phased half out of the world, its disruptor charging with a whine that made several delegates cover whatever passed for their ears. Maya didn't dodge it. She walked toward it, unhurried, and stepped straight through the space where it would be solid again half a second later, arriving inside its reach exactly as it reformed, her elbow already moving. The weapon sparked out of its hand. 2. The third drone had learned nothing except to run. It filled the air with stun bursts, and Maya moved through the pattern like someone reading a sentence she'd already memorized, not predicting the shots, just refusing to be where they'd decided to go. She closed 20 feet in one leap that made an Exari delegate's crystal lattice flare white, wrenched the weapon free, and fired it once into the machine's own processor. It folded. 3. She retrieved her jacket. Nobody spoke. "Shields are built for weapons that behave predictably," she said, buttoning it. "So are targeting systems. That's the trouble with fighting something evolution built to be unreasonable." Her smile had teeth in it. "We're not tactically superior. We're just genuinely, thoroughly out of our minds, and your algorithms don't have a column for that." Vex studied her with something new in all 6 eyes. Not contempt, calculation. The Nexari delegate pressed further. Still shaken, training drones weren't real soldiers, he said. Real war was different. Maya's expression didn't move, but the temperature of the room did. "Those drones ran your species' own doctrine," she said quietly. "Your tactics, your instincts. If your warriors would fight differently than your own programming claims, delegate, I'd genuinely like to hear how." Silence answered her, which was its own kind of answer. She reached for her communicator instead of pressing further. "Since words aren't proof enough," she said, and sent a file to every seat in the chamber. The numbers landed like weight dropping through the floor. 6 months of wargame data, human units against every simulated alliance doctrine the Council possessed. A success rate north of 97%. Vex went very still reading it. The Corvan delegate's granite face seemed to lose color it didn't technically have. "You spent half a year preparing countermeasures for weapons you'd never seen," Cleth said, and it wasn't quite a question. "We studied you," Maya said. "Then we found the seams, on paper so far. But the demonstration and the numbers were only the setup. The real reckoning came after, when Cleth, voice careful, almost pleading, asked what would happen if the council said no. Maya didn't answer with a threat. She answered with a map. She lit the projection above the chamber floor, and the room's understanding of the last hour rearranged itself. This wasn't 17 careful colonies awaiting inspection. It was a wound of red spreading across a quarter of the mapped region outposts. Yes, but underneath them trade contracts, agricultural partnerships, mining operations quietly outbidding established consortiums on a dozen worlds nobody had flagged as human territory, because none of it had arrived on warships. While the Council's intelligence had spent years counting hulls, human traders had been signing treaties in the same rooms. Vex read the projection twice. The second time his voice came out flat, stripped of everything but the arithmetic. "You have achieved colonization," he said, without firing a single shot. "We prefer the word helpful," Maya said, and something in the softness of it was worse than any weapon she'd used that day. That was the true break, not the throw, not the wargame numbers, but this. 47 species realizing, all at once, that the meeting about admitting humanity had quietly become a meeting about a decision already made without them in the room. The Corvan delegate's massive form trembled. The ethereal representative flickered so hard it nearly lost cohesion entirely. Cleth's carapace had gone the color of old rust. "What," Cleth finally asked, "does your species actually want from us?" "A seat at a table we're already standing beside," Maya said. "Recognition, partnership, the chance to stop pretending we're not already here." She let the next part land gently, which made it land harder. "If the council decides otherwise, we don't disappear. We keep doing exactly what we've always done, meeting people, whether or not they've finished deciding they want to be met." That was the 14 seconds. That was the silence she counted, the one the story had started inside, the room finally understanding what it had actually been negotiating. Cleth broke it himself, voice barely above the ambient hum of the chamber. "The council will deliberate." "Take all the time you need," Maya said, gathering her jacket properly this time. "We're patient. We've had practice." 23 minutes later, in the narrow galley of a departing shuttle, her communicator chimed. Full membership. Unanimous. Effective immediately. She read it once, unsurprised, and set the device face down on the console. Control's voice came through a moment later, dry with something like awe. "Remind me never to sit across a table from your species." "Bit late for that," Maya said, watching the council's lit dome shrink beneath the shuttle's climb. "We've been dealing this galaxy cards since we worked out how to leave the ground." "And if they'd said no?" "Then we'd have kept dealing," she said, just without asking permission first. She poured herself coffee from the shuttle's small galley unit, the steam catching the cabin light. They didn't need to lose to understand they'd already lost. That's usually the part that scares people most. Below, 47 species were beginning to understand exactly what they had voted for. Maya set her chronometer on the console beside the coffee, screen up, and watched the numbers climb instead of count down. No reason left to measure the room's silence, now that it was hers to spend as she liked. She drank, unhurried, while the dome of the Galactic Council's homeworld folded into the dark behind them. One more system that now belonged, however reluctantly, to the list of places humans had simply decided to help.